He was a man of peace at a time of war.
But people did not listen to him. They went on to fight, and so many people were killed.
Being a pacifist doesn't mean that you have no courage or that you don't stand up. But he didn't like this fighting. He says no good will come of it. As it was, you see, there are hundreds of years of terrible wars and many hundreds and thousands of Xhosa people being killed.
There are many young people who know very little about Ntsikana. A lot of people in the country know his great hymn, the Ahom. But that is often as far as the knowledge goes. So we thought we had an opportunity here to fill a niche.
Ntsikana was born at the end of the 18th century. He's regarded as the first Christian prophet in the Eastern Cape.
He saw a snake, running, with smoke on its head. And the interpretation of that was, the coming of the steam trains.
He said that the country would be crisscrossed with white trails. He was anticipating roads.
And he also saw a button, without a hole. And the interpretation of that was, the coming of new economy.
He said that children would have smoke coming out of their mouths, as though he understood the drug culture.
The other thing which he also saw was a maize cob with long fiber. And the interpretation of that was the coming of the missionaries.
Then he himself wrote music. So there are 4 great hymns that the country knows.
Traditional Xhosa music was already in danger of being forgotten when Dave Dargy started his research in the 1970s. In workshops, together with Oswald Hilmer, he encouraged Xhosa people to compose their own church music.
They had this meeting to publicize this new mass by Tjamzashe. And some of the songs, all the songs were very nice. But one was very special. That has become quite famous. So that was really Xhosa. It had a bit of Xhosa rhythm, and it had Xhosa chords and scale a little bit. So I asked Hirma, what does this music come from? And he said, Tjamzashe said that it's based on music of the prophet Ntsikana. Now I got very excited about Ntsikana's music, and I was hunting for more versions, traditional versions of it, and I found a number of other versions. Then I found old ladies who sang it down below Lumko, further down the river. They'd never heard of Ntsikana. They were singing The Hands Are Wounded, but they didn't know they were singing about Christ's hands. Wherever I went after that, I was asking about Ntsikana's song. And so I asked them, do they know Ngomaga Ntsikana? Then I started singing. One lady says, I deny you, I've got it. And she started singing, Om na, is it Lanza Zinamaneba? So they didn't know it was a religious song or a Christian song, but they knew it was a Xhosa song. So they put their own words in, as they do with Xhosa songs. So, I've hidden the monkey nut.
The first part was actually the part which he was using for calling people to come. Sele all the time. So people believe that, that is Sele, because if you listen carefully to the tone of that Sele, it starts from high to low. So they believe that, it resembles a ringing of a bell, like ding dong.
It's very similar to this fun song they use for drinking, but if you hear the two, you would not connect them. But it's the same melody.
Ntsikana's life story is closely connected with the great hymn. He was directly called by God and not Christianized by European missionaries.
And he went to a wedding, and the people were dancing. Ntsikana was a famous dancer, and he had his two wives with him and his riding ox. And suddenly there was a terrific wind, so strong that people fell to the ground. And this happened 3 times. And then Ntsikana announced that he was going home.
So on his way home, he stopped at one of the river, and then, he had imbola, that clay which they actually smear on the faces. So he washed himself, and people believe that that was the baptism, that he baptized himself when he did that. Because after that, when he went back home, in the evening, they said he did not sleep. People heard him, humming a song, singing, humming, with no words. So he hummed the song until it was early morning. He was actually calling people to come, he was actually pointing at himself that, please come and listen to me, because, there is something which has entered in me, and I would like to tell you about this thing. And he was actually now pointing up, to the sky that, there is God, and people must pray to God.
The students that perform in the opera company are from the region where Ntsikana lived. Many of them study at the universities in Grahamstown and at Fort Hare.
Okay. Slow, but flowing.
Okay.
My window, my love loves me. We started the company with students who were already registered for vocal studies at Rhodes University. Then we supplemented the numbers with students from the townships in Grahamstown, Alice and East London.
Die fangen die Talente, man könnte sagen, direkt von der Straße weg. Die schauen, wer ist gut, oder fragen eben Leute, die bei ihr schon in der EastCape Opera Company sind, ja, kennt ihr jemand, der gut singt und Lust hätte mitzumachen? Und da bekommst du dann ein entsprechendes Training. Und manchmal bringst die Leute dann eben nach Fort Hare und da kriegen sie dann eine entsprechende Ausbildung. Sind ganz unterschiedlich. Da haben wir einerseits Leute aus den Townships, manche Leute mit einer guten Schulbildung, andere Leute wiederum kommen aus irgendwelchen Dörfern und da schaut es natürlich mit dem schulischen Background nicht ganz so gut aus. Die haben zum Teil nicht mal eine Ahnung von der traditionellen Musik. Von der Schule her gibt es keine richtige Musikausbildung, ganz besonders in diesen sogenannten Black Schools. Das heißt, die müssen hier erstmal antrainiert werden an der Uhadi und am Hube, an diesen traditionellen Bögen, die man hier im Eastern Cape hat. habe mich immer für Afrika interessiert, habe auch in München Anthropologie studiert und Musikwissenschaft. Und das erste Mal bin ich nach Afrika gekommen, durch meinen Swahili-Lehrer in München, nach Tansania und habe da auch Trommelbau gelernt. Das ist einfach eine Kuh. Und ja, so für einen großen Trommeltyp wie die Igugu, die man hier hat, ist das genau das Richtige. Ich habe auch schon Omas gesehen, was bessere vielleicht sogar Ziegen hat gemacht. Allerdings eher ostafrikanischer Typ. Wobei die Igugu, die es hier aufspielen, auch beidseitige Bespannung hat. Das heißt, diese ganzen Flusen wegkriegen, das wird alles weggeschnitten. Auf die Art und Weise kriegt man eine bessere Haut. Klingt dann auch besser. Ich habe mal ein Experiment gemacht und eben dann den Trommeltyp nachbauen lassen. Von Leuten aus Malawi, Südafrika und Zimbabwe. Das war echt interessant, weil jeder noch ein bisschen was dazu beigetragen hat. Die haben den nicht gekannt, den Typ. Aber jeder hat was gewusst zu irgendwelchen Fellbearbeitungstechniken.
Performing a Nkosa story confronts the students with their own traditional background.
Das Problem ist einerseits das Fernsehen. Das heißt, da sehen die jungen Leute, wie man heutzutage mit anderen Leuten, jungen Leuten umgeht. Man hört moderne Musik, hauptsächlich Hip-Hop beispielsweise. Und traditionelle Musik ist ein bisschen so hinterwäldlerisch. Und natürlich der Lifestyle, der sich hier ändert. Die Leute wollen lieber Superstar werden mit moderner Musik als irgendein UHD-Player, der irgendwo im Dorf sitzt.
Fortunately, the four-tier students can all play indigenous instruments, so it doesn't have to be arranged for them. We've already experimented, and they can just accompany themselves and sing.
The university program offers courses in African and in European music.
And it became clear in the beginning that the Xhosa students wanted to learn Mozart, Verdi, and Puccini, and the English-speaking and Afrikaans-speaking students were quite attracted to the Xhosa operas. And this actually made for a very interesting process.
The students are very much involved in the composition process because we talk about the music of Ntsikana and we talk about the scenario. This is a wedding. Now the students will come up with quite a number of songs that will be sung in a wedding. So that's how we compose the whole opera. The choruses, because they will be sung by the villagers, they will be in Xhosa. And the arias and some of the ensembles, because they will be having a message, they will be sung in Xhosa and also be translated to English.
The Nkosa language is a Bantu language with click sounds. Yet, the clicks have been taken over from Khoisan language peoples who originally inhabited the south of Africa.
One of the choruses is actually composed to have clicks. It's called Amaqaba Qabimbola. So that song will be sung, and it will be very interesting to have the audience to have them to try and pronounce those words.
Sing
And we also have some of the cliques that have ixoxo, lixoxa, amaxoxo. So those songs will be part of the repertoire.
I found it's better if I lift the sort of middle back of the tongue. And then you start shaping the mouth.
Xhosa music is also known for having its own techniques of overtone singing. The University of Fort Hare tries hard to keep this tradition alive.
And your tears will run.
The story of Ntsikana is also about a rivalry between prophets and their political influence. Mkhele was the antagonist of the peacekeeping prophet Ntsikana.
Mkhele, he was also known as a war doctor, because with his prophecy was mainly, to encourage people to fight.
This guy remembered that this missionary had said that people will rise from the dead. So he started saying the ancestors will rise from the dead and chase the British into the sea.
When they went to attack, the British, the ancestors were nowhere to be found or to be seen. So many Xhosas died also, because of Nele's false prophecy.
But Ntsikana remembered this, and he thought, no, this guy's wrong. He said nothing about the ancestors chasing the British. So Ntsikana then started criticizing Mele Makanda.
Nele was actually a false prophet, because he was demanding, for example, if you want him to maybe help divine your problem, he would actually ask for a cattle. You must bring a cow, before I do that. So whereas Ntsikana never asked anything from his own people, he was doing everything, preaching, the message which he dreamt, free of charge.
Ntsikana was also engaged in a peaceful coexistence with European settlers.
He warned Mele, he says, if you attack Grahamstown, you will be beaten. So he was beaten. So that's why his followers call him a prophet, you see.
The EastCape Opera Company has produced several European and African operas in the last years. Many of the Xhosa people are naturally gifted with good voices.
Where are we going to find a Queen of the Night? And then Umukululi said that he had a Queen of the Night in East London. I said, who? And he said, I'll bring her. She was 19 years of age. And when he told me 19, I said, what? Anyway, this young woman came in and she opened her mouth and this extraordinary sound came out. Then we had to see if she could act, and she could act as well.
The German was very difficult, and I think what most people don't understand is that German is not as close to African languages as, say, Italian or French is, and I speak French. So the German is very hard, especially pronouncing the umlauts.
I said to one gentleman last year, I said, have you any idea what you are singing about? He said, no, I do not understand a thing what I'm singing about.
and raise that sugar rice tea.
They have their own traditions, and you've got to be careful you don't step on the line with their traditions, because you might land up with a problem.
She's driving me wild!
You do not call a gentlemen who are over the age of 60 and have had the circumcision operation and the whole ceremony, you do not call them boys, they are men. And I made the mistake of calling one a boy one day, and I was given a mouthful. So these little instant things which you don't normally think about.
Many of them auditioned for the really well-established opera school and opera company in Cape Town. And I actually have lost count of the ones that actually get in there.
In South Africa, we don't get the support for the arts from the government like we used to do, so there are no grants. The symphony orchestras, the opera companies, the ballet companies are all more or less disappeared. So the question is, where are they going to sing if they want to be professional?
In Hawksback, the EastCape Opera Company has a private stage where students can present their first programs.
We're trying to expose them to as much sung material as we can, so that they can respond to opportunities when they leave. And the theatre it takes 36 people, so it's a kick-off for all our tours.
What good is melody? What good is music if it ain't possessing something sweet?
Yeah, it's just been a dream of mine that I've always had since I was a child, because I was singing at a very young age. At the moment, I'm in the third year of my Bachelor of Music degree, and I also teach voice part-time at two of the high schools here in Grahamstown, because I think there's a lack of music education and just generally music schools that can teach children regardless of whether they have the money to learn or not. I think I would like to sing a lot more, and I'd like to go overseas and be taught by someone from there, because I think they have a lot to give and a lot to learn.
Ntsikana's message has been quite important for Xhosa people, especially for one of the most prominent members of this people group, Nelson Mandela.
Among the founders of the ANC were leading members of the Ntsikana Association. In the 1960s, 1962-63, this Rivonia trial, because Mandela and others, they said the only way we're going to get our freedom is by fighting. So then they decided to fight. But until then, the ANC was not for fighting. The ANC was to try peacefully to talk to the whites, to try to get a share in the country, and they were never given it.
Normally it's good if you leave the upper part open.
The post-apartheid system in South Africa allows sharing cultural and religious knowledge with people from all over the world.
When you look at the message of Ntsikana, it resembles the message of Mandela, because when Mandela came out of prison, he also continued preaching the same message which was preached by Ntsikana, a message of reconciliation, that people should forgive one another. He did not encourage people to fight back or to revenge. After being in prison at Robben Island for so many years. He came, but he had a heart, to forgive, to even encourage other people to forget and make peace with one another.
The prophet Ntsikana. After 200 years, he's still a role model for politics, society, and music in South Africa.
Once upon a time, there was a man called Ntsikana who warned Xhosa people and wanted them to unite, and who wanted the people to accept God for the first time in the Eastern Cape.
Ntsikana was their prophet. He was their prophet, and his song was their song. And it showed them that they were people the same as the whites. And not only that they were people the same as the whites, that they were called to be Christians the same as the whites.